It is still raging on with devastating consequences. 2 years, almost to the date, since Russia attacked Ukraine. And I understand that countries that belong to the global south see this frequently as a European war. And I hear all too often that we Europeans do apply double standards, focusing on Ukraine at the expense of wars and crises in the rest of the world. And maybe there is truth in that allegation. But I would like to make the point here in Delhi that Ukraine is much more than a local war on European soil. It is a brutal challenge to international stability and the international rules-based order that India has supported and has every interest in maintaining. And I think we all have a responsibility to use the power we have on the international stage. And none of us can afford to sit on the sidelines. And I'm convinced that on Ukraine, India has an important role to play. It has a voice that should be heard. Our common humanity and interconnectedness are inescapable. To draw from the Hindu scriptures that put it so powerfully, the world is one family. And sacred Sanskrit wisdom that resonates loud and clear today. And that brings me to the existential threat that climate change poses to our fragile planet and all the life that inhabits it. Greece, like India, we discussed this today with the Prime Minister, has already witnessed and suffered the consequences. The climate crisis is here. It's not something that will happen in the future. We have accelerated our energy transition in recent years in order to mitigate those effects, but we've also invested heavily in adaptation. In Greece, we now generate half of our electricity from solar and wind. It is one of the highest percentages in the world. And this transition has brought us cleaner air, it has brought us cheaper energy, it has brought us less dependence on imported energy, and of course greater security from external shocks. But we also know that climate ambition must be based on what is fair and on what is realistic. And each country will forge its own path towards net zero in light with the twin imperatives of energy security and affordability. And the Green Development Pact, Prime Minister Modi, was a major step forward under India's G20 presidency. And it was an important bridge between the global south and the north, providing pathways for nations in this critical journey towards achieving energy, climate, environmental, and disaster resilience-related objectives. And at COP28, we demonstrated that it is possible at the global scale to come to some agreement and to make progress. At the same time, it is evident that we do need to do much more and put our pledges into practice with the utmost energy. Ladies and gentlemen, India and Greece, Greece and India have something else in common. We see democracy not as an inconvenient barrier to delivering against contemporary challenges, but as our greatest hope of ensuring that we do. And democracy, as was established 2,500 years ago in ancient Athens, is rooted in the conviction that society functions best when all its citizens are equal and have the right to share in the running of the state. But, as was pointed out in the introduction, we should have no illusions. Democracy is vulnerable, and it is facing profound threats. And those who detest our democratic values have one big advantage. They are not bound by those values. And we must be alert to the emerging challenges and adaptable enough to address them with real solutions. We must, if necessary, own up to our own mistakes, but above all, we must listen to each other with mutual respect without preaching or exhibiting any sense of moral superiority. But no matter how disparate beliefs and ideologies are in any given society, we need to be able to rely on some basic truths and agree on the facts that at the end of the day shape any democratic discourse. And we know that democracy can work best only if all our citizens have the information they need to make informed decisions at the ballot box. And our technological advances, profound as they may be, AI, social media, the internet itself, need to be tools to facilitate the propagation of information. They must not be weapons against reality. And it is now undeniable that artificial intelligence presents a powerful tool for deceptive use at the hands of malicious actors who wish to disrupt democratic elections. And no democratic nation, large or small, is immune to this threat. Government regulation is frequently necessary. I'm very glad that the European Union has already agreed on what we call the Artificial Intelligence Act, the first ever legal framework regulating artificial intelligence. But also the technology sectors, as the producers of AI need to exercise the utmost responsibility, and this is true for all global technology companies. And it is good that we're starting to work on this. I was able to witness it firsthand at the Munich Security Conference last week. There are some of the leading companies of the sector signed an accord to combat deceptive use of artificial intelligence in the 2024 elections. And all these are good steps, but it is clear that it is just the beginning. In the coming years, we will need to do more in order to protect democracy from the many threats that will be launched against it, perhaps already in this very crucial election year. And today, democracy, and that is why this gathering is so important, is about essentially outsmarting those who seek to bend and misshape the rule of democratic discourse in their favor. And India and Greece have vital roles to play in achieving that goal, whether at the United Nations, where Greece is seeking a rotating seat on the Security Council next year, at the G20, which was so expertly chaired by India last year, or through the European Union. And by the way, Greece is supporting the reform of the Security Council of the United Nations in order for leading countries such as India to be represented at the high table and in order for their voice to be heard. But, and here I'm referring to all the policymakers who participate at this year's dialogue, we need your help. Because at the end of the day, effective policy making relies on creative thinking, and it flourishes in international fora, such as the one I have the privilege of addressing today. Prime Minister Modi, Minister Jaishankar, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, it is worth reflecting on the fact that while Greece and India discovered democracy and certainly each other a long time ago, it is today that they're discovering each other again. And the success of this cooperation is based on a very simple premise. We both believe in the virtues of discussion and debate. After all, ancient civilizations encouraged this debate and this cross-fertilization of ideas. And there's a lot, we talk a lot about artificial intelligence, but there's also a lot to be learned by the ancestral intelligence which is hidden in our ancient civilizations. And we recognize that without such debate, the search for truth is meaningless. This world is increasingly divided. It's divided between the West and the East, between the South and the North. And Greece and India stand essentially at the intersection of these divisions. These divisions can be managed, they can even be tempered by open discussions, which is why the world needs, and you called it a public square. I will call it an agora, the ancient world word, not just a marketplace, but a new meeting place where ideas can be tested against each other. And the Raisina dialogue is indeed providing us with this new agora. A divided world needs more tangible and physical connections as well. And the integration of our two seas, the Indo-Pacific on the one hand, the Mediterranean Sea on the other, will benefit not just India and Greece, but our neighbors too. Our two people have much to learn from each other, and they also have much to give to the world. And if we are to do so with effect, we must begin today with a commitment to public discourse, open discussions, tolerance, acceptance of the opposite view, and of course, the preservation of the democratic idea. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, for that wonderful address. I take back at least two words with me: ancestral intelligence. I think that's something we should all be focusing on. I think there's a merit to that. But I also saw a hint of an invitation for a Raisina agora on the Mediterranean in Greece. And I take you up on that invitation. But let me now invite the Honorable Foreign Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, to propose a vote of thanks.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, Prime Minister Mitsotakis, Excellencies, dear friends. It's my privilege to give the vote of thanks that will conclude the Raisina Dialogue's inaugural event this evening. First and foremost, we thank the chief guest, the Prime Minister of Greece and his wife, for joining us today. Our collective appreciation to Prime Minister Mitsotakis for what I'm confident all of you will agree was a truly inspirational and thought-provoking address. His message of democracies that deliver resonates strongly, particularly now, particularly here. Prime Minister Modi's presence amongst us, as always, is a reminder of India's growing engagement with the world, especially in the last decade. He has shown us why it is as important to listen and reflect as it is to articulate and express. This event takes place at the end of a day which has seen the intensification of the strategic partnership between India and Greece established during Prime Minister Modi's visit in 2023. As two civilizational states, our countries have a particular responsibility to contribute to the evolution of the contemporary global order. We both naturally tend to take a long view of challenges and a considered one of opportunities. In the flow of history, connectivity has always played a crucial role. It is only to be expected that the talks between the two prime ministers today focused on enhancing the linkage between two global economic centers, India and Europe. The IMEC corridor, as Prime Minister Mitsotakis pointed out, holds particular importance in this regard. As India deepens its footprint abroad, Greece has emerged as a favorable destination. Our pharmaceutical industry, our agro-business and aviation are already established there, and the Prime Minister in his address mentioned growing Greek investment and interest in India. We expect that a mobility agreement will bring us even closer. Raisina is good for business as well. Ladies and gentlemen, India's growing interest in the Mediterranean region is an important facet of our steady rise. The India-Greece partnership can surely serve as an anchor. Raisina dialogue, as a made-in-India version of a global public square, has become what it is due to all of you. I thank you all for that. Please keep coming, please keep talking, please keep contributing. To Team Raisina and Team MEA, a special word of acknowledgement and encouragement. You have made all this possible. Please remain ambitious and keep challenging yourself even as you challenge others. Finally, let me recognize the Raisina Chronicles as we near the first decade. It captures what we have achieved, but more importantly, indicates the promise ahead. Once again, thank you all and a very good evening.
Thank you, Dr. Jaishankar. May I request you all to remain seated as the VIPs exit the room. My colleague Shubh will take this mic and will guide you through the next steps post the exit of the VIPs. But I request you all to remain seated.
Good evening, everyone. Please do remain seated. As Dr. Saran mentioned, there is a security protocol. We would request everyone to please remain seated as the guests exit the venue.